time to summon the Lords of Thunder! With your hosts, Alpha Omega Sin and Happy Console Gamer.
God, I love that opening. It just sounds so goddamn epic. We're back with another Lords of Thunder podcast. I am one of your hosts, Johnny Millennium, and I just wanted to say that a man's occupation is to stick his bone eration in a woman's insulation to increase it. Damn it! I fucked it up!
So close. Close.
A man's occupation is to stick his bone eration in a woman's insulation to increase the population for a younger generation. For more information, call Sex Education. Get a free demonstration of the desk. I got it! And we're here with Alpha Omega Sin.
Alpha 316 says game the fuck on. That will be my way to come into the show, because I need a little bit of Stone Cold, then I could just interrupt with what? The entire time.
Yeah, so we're going to get right into this one today. Is we want to talk about, this is going to blow a lot of people's minds, because I don't think a lot of people, I think people know that you're a wrestling fan, but I don't think anybody knows that I am a wrestling fan. And
yes,
today we're going to talk
you
about
don't say.
Hey, we watch your mouth, jabroni. That's like the worst fucking impression of anybody I've ever done. But yeah, we just want to talk about wrestling and a little bit of what got us into wrestling, and yeah, from the fucking early '80s for me to now, and yeah, like I know you're still watching wrestling. I kind of fallen off over the last bunch of years, so we can get caught up on that. But what got you into wrestling, sir?
Oh my. I grew up in a wrestling household. Like, every motherfucker in the house, my entire family, liked wrestling. All of them. People around the corner, down the street, liked wrestling. Wrestling was one of those things, like, in the 80s and 90s, wrestling was fucking huge. And growing up around it, and especially during the peak of Hulkamania.
Oh, God.
Getting all the Hulk Hogan shit that I did, like, I had all the plastic action figures, I definitely had wrestling t-shirts, I got to go live, I don't even know how many times with my family. I know one time I actually got to go with my uncle and my mom, that I remember, and I was really, really little too, and that's like probably my earliest wrestling memory of seeing anything live, that is. But growing up around that stuff, I mean, these larger-than-life people just going and kicking the living shit out of each other. You know, seeing the Ultimate Warrior go and gorilla press some fucking people. Hulk Hogan dropping the big fucking, like, after he does the big boot and shit. And it was just all cool. Seeing The Undertaker come out, the Phenom! It was all so over the top and crazy. And, you know that it's fake, but it's cool as shit. It's like, it's a manly soap opera, and I don't give a fuck, because it's like comic books meets like action movies and just like storytelling and all sorts of crazy shit going on. It was fucking awesome, and having, all the adults in it cheer them on and boo people. And, when you're a kid and you grow up in that, you're just like, yeah, I hate them too. Yeah, get them, yeah. And squeaker fucking voice. So it was.
Oh yeah.
It was the household thing. So that's how I grew up, and that's still what I'm rocking right now. How about you though? How you were talking about the early '80s?
Oh God.
So
yeah. Well, I remember watching wrestling when it was really not good. It was just men in panties fighting each other, and like hairy men, and it was really. I'd put it on, and I'd be like, oh, I don't like... My initial thing was, I don't like wrestling. But it was when fucking Andre the Giant went against Hulk Hogan, and everybody at school was like, exactly what you said, Hulkamania. I don't... You know what I mean? Like, I know Hulk Hogan nowadays, he's done said a lot of fucking terrible things, and, all sorts of questionable stuff with him. But it doesn't ruin Hulkamania back then. I mean, it was like a weird religion. It was just, everybody wanted to get behind this guy. And, he was just such a freaking incredible guy. Hulk Hogan was an incredible guy, and how he took on Andre the Giant, who was a sweet, sweet man, but they made into the most biggest villain ever. And so I got warmed into wrestling, and I started watching it, and Rowdy Roddy Piper, Sergeant motherfucking Slaughter.
Oh yeah,
I love
dude, and Sergeant Slaughter was even cooler because he's one of the few people I can think of that went from being a wrestler and also got to show up in something such as G.I. Joe.
Oh, the best.
Like, dude, that was fucking mind blowing to kids because of G.I. Joe, and then all of a sudden, the real American heroes come out and they're all kicking the shit out of Cobra and all the bad guys and fucking judo chops and drop kicks and guns and explosions and shit, and all of a sudden that wrestler that you saw that was waving the American flag on TV, bouncing people off turnbuckles, is in the fucking cartoon. That was crazy.
And he was training them. He trained the new recruits, and he was brutal.
Yeah.
He was brutal. Sergeant Slaughter in G.I. Joe was one of those wonderful 80s things that I'm so happy that happened. Really, I remember getting my Sergeant Slaughter action figure going, this is the best. Actually, I have a question for you. Jesse the Body Ventura, was he a wrestler first?
Yeah.
Oh, he was he? I never followed a lot of his career. Like I saw him when he was in the Schwarzenegger movies and stuff like that. That's where
he was going by Jesse the Body Ventura, and he was very, very. A lot of people will go and misconstrue the definition of like flamboyant for being kind of like prissy and shit, but he was very charismatic and he had his own look, and the dude could rock the fucking microphone and had a physique that could definitely be in, a Mr. Universe style competition. Yeah. So he was like the entire package, but then he ended up like going into like I don't know 100% why he transitioned from being a wrestler into like commentary and shit, and then doing like movies and TV shows, and then end up becoming fucking like part of the whole governmental race and shit. But it was it's interesting just to see something like that. It's just like night and day.
Yeah, no, I was curious about that. I kind of thought he was, but I didn't know a lot of his history. I just remember him in Predator. He was the fucking man in Predator.
Oh yeah, bad motherfucker, dude. I always liked him, but a lot of the stuff that he had done was I had to go back and watch that stuff because it was a bit before like my memory and recollection of things in wrestling. So
yeah, but so here's the thing. I'm gonna hand it off to you here. Is that for me? I really loved those days of wrestling. With the Hulk Hogan era and all that time. And then I entered in high school, and I kind of got out of wrestling, and I didn't get into wrestling again to the Attitude Era. But we'll save that for when we get there. Tell me about, were you always into, like you said, your whole family was into it. Did you ever get out of wrestling? Because I did for many years.
I did whenever, I would say it was probably the 2000s is whenever I just kind of was like, yeah, this shit's, it's a bit too stale.
So after the Attitude Era, so let's just go back. Take me into the Attitude Era through your eyes.
Well, you figure, right? It's kind of crazy because there definitely was a point that wrestling fans and even like the promoters and shit could realize that wrestling was getting stagnant and stale. Because we went from the 80s, and a lot of shit that was working in the 80s wasn't going to work so well and translate for the audience in the 90s.
Yeah.
Things in the 90s, it was all about pushing boundaries, being edgy. People were all about swearing and crude humor and tons of other things like that, and just essentially pushing the envelope of what you could get away with. Yeah. And that was putting asses in seats whenever being done correctly. And they had like all the stupid gimmicks still going on, and they had the Godwins, for example. They would come out and they were just hillbillies. It was a dumb fucking gimmick. It wasn't working. They had Bob Holly, who was supposed to be a race car driver. It was fucking stupid. They had Duke the Dumpster Grossi. It was fucking stupid. It wasn't working. They kept on trying to use all the shit that worked in the 80s, and it was old hat. So in the 90s, WCW, World Championship Wrestling, which was over on TNT with Ted Turner, they started really becoming like boundary pushing by blurring the lines between fiction and nonfiction by making you believe some of the stuff that was happening wasn't scripted and wasn't
real,
supposed to be happening. Because of that, you also had ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, which was all about things being very over top, very mature rated, R-rated style approach. One of my favorite memories of wrestling too. And WWF was kind of left going, well, we've got to basically like do this or die.
Yeah.
And they did. They changed their entire approach, and it became the Monday Night Wars. So both of them were going against the grain of what people deemed acceptable, and they were doing all the insane shit, and that's where there was a big time resurgence for wrestling, I feel.
Yeah. And that was, what year was that? Was that 96, 97, 97?
I would say it started around 1995, but the true, like, you know, build up for it was 96. All the way, I mean, some argue about when it technically ended. Some would say 1999, 2000s. Others have said 2001, but that's around the time that it had started. And there was inklings of, you know, this is the way that they were going to be conducting business and the story arcs and all of the wrestlers and shit a little bit before that, but not much before that in 95, because in like 93 and 94, shit definitely wasn't that over the top.
I was not tuning in. I was not watching anything. I didn't care about. I was doing other things. I was at in film school, and I used to hang out with these two freaking awesome Asian guys, and everybody in the class had their own unique names. Don't ask. Everybody got a nickname. So I think this one guy. What was his name again? I forget. We called him G-Spot. There was G-Spot, and then there was Tansen. Yeah. But anyways, these two guys, I was such good friends with them, and they were like, "Oh man, I can't wait to go home and watch wrestling tonight." I'm like, "Wrestling? Really? I'm like, you guys watch wrestling?" I'm like, "Oh, it's so freaking amazing. Oh, fucking every week you can't, that's the highlight of the week." And I'm like, "Really?" And I remember, isn't that so funny how you remember some conversations? I'm like,
"Oh yeah,
yeah." So I'll go check it out. I'll go check it. So at home that night, I flicked it on. I think it came on at 7:00 at night, and I'm watching it. And I'm like, I just took it in, and I was like, this is kind of fun. There's a lot of fun things going on. But I wasn't sold. But the funny thing is, the following week, I just tuned in again. And I kept tuning in and tuning in. Then I got to know everybody. I got to know about this guy called The Rock. I remember the first time I saw The Rock, I'm like, this guy is fucking hilarious. Unbelievable. And stone cold. And my highlight guy, still, of the Attitude Era, Vince McMahon, and I really missed the Vince McMahon years. I mean, he was the fucking bomb. You hated him, but you fucking loved him.
Oh yeah,
he was the best.
But before we move forward with it, there was actually something I want to ask you. Okay, so you had talked about that you'd gotten into wrestling in the early '80s.
Yeah.
And that you'd liked it around that time. When do you remember was like the time that you had kind of phased out of it, or if you remember a reason why you did?
You know what it was? It was after all the Hulkamania stuff and all of that, and I remember going to my friend's place for Saturday Night Main Event, which was an 11:00 start time, which was late for kids in when you're in grade 7. But and I loved it, and but it was just like grade 9, 1989, that I was getting into skateboarding, into women. I was getting, I just kind of left all that stuff. I wasn't really watching a lot of TV. I was going out partying all the time. And wrestling was just like, oh, it's that silly thing, I kind of had that zone. It kind of had that wash on me at that point. That's why when I came back to the Attitude Era, I was like, oh, fuck, this is really good now. It's not so cheesy. To be honest with you, the 80s was good, but it's cheesy, a lot of it. It's really... I'm not saying the Attitude Era is full of cheese, but it was more... I don't know. It was modern. It was more. It's a little bit more hip, for sure. So I love the battle with McMahon and Austin and oh my God, Hardy Boys were a fucking major favorite of mine as well. Love those guys. Those ladder matches. Oh,
I noticed that a lot of the conversations that we've had when just talking about wrestling in general. Did you? It seems like you watched almost exclusively WWF/WWE. Did you watch anything from WCW or ECW at all?
No. It's funny when I really got I went through a couple of years of really researching, and that's when I started watching the documentaries and fighting wrestling with shadows and all of those great. I think I've seen every wrestling documentary that exists now because it's just so fascinating and just to learn the big picture of it all because it was so. I love wrestling. I think what's so interesting about wrestling and even the Attitude Era started to show a bit of that was the reality side of it. It was fake, but there was also, we were talking about this earlier, there's a lot of reality to it. Like that you could tell that there were some real rivalries going on and that the mimicking in the ring was mimicking behind the ring, it started to blur. Sometimes I was watching it and I was like, is this real? There was moments that happened. I'm like, is this playing it up? Like, do you remember here's a great moment, when Vince McMahon started to have that affair, but he was really having an affair? Wasn't that like something that happened?
Oh, the stuff with, Trish Stratus?
Something was weird going on there, yeah.
I don't know if... I don't believe that he was actually having an affair behind Linda's back.
There was something about that,
but
though.
They kept on putting... I know around that time, they kept on bringing the entire McMahon family to front and center on camera. So Stephanie, Shane, and Vince, they were always on TV. Linda would come out every so often, but I always question whether or not she was as comfortable with being on camera and being out there, because it's not like she can really take any bumps. And to top it off, every time that she spoke, it was pretty fucking awful. Her acting is it's shit for lack of a better term. But I don't think it was anything like that. They were just trying to find more ways for you to kind of hate Vince McMahon other than him just, merely screwing over your top favorite wrestler. How else can we get this guy to really seem like, he is the biggest fucking dickbag in the entire world? And I think that was that was one of their ideas. They've had a lot of really fucked up, crude ideas.
Yeah. The reason why I bring up that, I remember seeing some documentary that kind of talked about it, is that there was a lot of truth to that one. There was a lot of weird stuff that was going on too. That's something the line blurs at times. It's they're doing a show, and then there's other things that there was a lot of truth in there, and you're like, what? And after a while, even I could start getting confused. I'm like, is this what's real and what's not?
What's interesting is that the Attitude Era and just the Monday Night Wars in general between WWF and WCW, they had kind of been that injection straight into the heart that kind of revitalized wrestling in general, because it did get stale. And it's interesting because a lot of people felt that way, namely about Hulk Hogan, because he's basically the most iconic wrestler and the face of wrestling. And he had left WWF, went to WCW, got paid a fuck ton more money, and the unthinkable had happened. After 2 decades, essentially, of being Hulk Hogan the good guy, he ended up becoming a bad guy and being the biggest fucking jerk possible to everybody as Hollywood Hogan and joining the New World Order, the NWO. And it was so fucking cool. I remember at that point going, it's about time.
Yeah.
And even nowadays, I say that about John Cena every single fucking day. And it's weird that both of their careers mirror one another so much, minus the fact that John Cena somehow manages to have a shittier movie career than Hogan, which is... you have to really try to do that, but he's managed it. But
there was all these rumors going around that John Cena was going to be in the remake of Predator.
that would be fucking terrible. Because I'll be honest, his acting is not very good, and he's very stilted and stuff. Like if they put him into a comedy, like in a much more relaxed environment, I think he'd be fine. But outside of that, no, he can't pull off serious shit worth a damn.
Here's the thing: I got into the Attitude Era, then I was out of it for so many years, and then I was like, a couple of years ago, I was like, well, what's going on with wrestling now? And I'm like, John Cena had risen to like fame and fortune and all that, and I noticed there was so much booing of John Cena, and I was always like, what's wrong with John Cena? Because I didn't know. I had been following it.
It's because everybody is sick of him. It's for 10 years now, he has been coming out and saying and doing the same exact shit, and it is so uninteresting that it like you feel like you're in a catatonic state.
Why wouldn't they make him turn into a bad guy and shake things up and get them excited? Do they really need him to be a hero?
It's been his decision. A lot of people don't even know that, but he's come out on record and even said that he would, but he does so many different things outside of wrestling for like Make-A-Wish Foundation, for just children's hospitals, that he feels like if he did that, he would, be turning his back on those kids. He would hurt those kids to some degree. He did end it in a cryptic manner, saying that if there was somebody to go and take the torch that he passes on and would be able to fill his shoes, then he'd be more willing to, because those kids would have another hero to look to. But until then, he can't. I found out to be one of the biggest bullshit cop-outs, though, because despite a lot of things, you shouldn't assume that these kids are stupid. Children aren't stupid. People think that they are. They think that they're always naive and they're idiots because of their innocence. But, like, dude, when The Rock and Stone Cold were running around with DX and Undertaker and shit, all of them were running around, and they're not exactly family-friendly characters that they're portraying on TV. Yet children liked them a lot and looked up to them. The Rock is now the most highly paid action movie star, one of the most highly paid actors in general in Hollywood. Yeah. Stone Cold has one of the biggest wrestling podcasts, one of the biggest... he's in tons of movies. Usually they're straight to DVD, but I like them because they're cheesy action movies. Yeah. The Undertaker has arguably got one of the best wrestling legacies ever. DX went on to be one of the biggest factions in the entire world and had everybody screaming "suck it,"
and Shawn
women.
Michaels. Yeah.
But it's like, just fucking do it because it would be interesting. I hate the fact that they just do that crap because they're like, oh, it'll ruin the character. The fuck it will. Stone Cold hit Vince McMahon in the head with a fucking bedpan and then beat the shit out of him in the middle of a hospital, and then took one of the random instruments around and shoved it up his ass.
Oh, that's a classic episode.
Dude,
that is a classic where he's laid in bed, he's like, oh, thank God I'm by myself. And all of a sudden the doctor, yeah, that's great.
Dude, that entire thing was awesome as shit. Like, I loved, like, to this day, Stone Cold is actually my favorite wrestler.
He's excellent. He was so fun.
Like, it's crazy because I think that his character works so well because it's something that everybody, no matter who you are in any walk of life, you can kind of relate to somebody who is rebellious, fuck the system, and is beating the shit out of their boss that makes their life hell.
Everybody can relate to that and love that.
I'll say this: I really feel like if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, the Stone Cold character wouldn't work nearly as well.
Yeah. The thing I liked about Austin as well is that I saw a documentary on him, and like a lot of times when wrestling would cut on television, they would keep rolling, and they would start partying. Stone Cold would get a bunch of fucking beer, start fucking drinking it. He'd get in like a chair with wheels on it and go like, just fucking blast down the ramp on this thing to see if he could fall, if he could make it. And they were just having he was just having a good time. He really enjoyed it. And it's too bad. He had a wrestling, like, what was it that he injured again?
Oh, it was And, I mean, if you get to see the footage of it,
I have.
It actually, like, I turn away from watching it, and this is coming from somebody that's seen some really...
Was it his neck? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, his neck.
Yeah.
He had... they actually banned the move after this had happened because of how severe it was. Owen Hart and Stone Cold were having a match, and Owen Hart went to put him... He picked him up, turns him upside down, and goes to perform a pile driver. And a pile driver is essentially... it's supposed to look like you're dropping them on their head, but their head isn't low enough. And the person that's actually taking all the impact is the person that's performing the move on them.
Yeah.
And when Owen Hart picked him up and he had Stone Cold way too low when he went to go and do the move. And Stone Cold's head was several inches below his Owen Hart's thighs. So he jumps up and he drops down, and you can just see his fucking neck compress. And it's just like, when I see it, it actually like physically bothers me because it makes you cringe. And
that's really sad.
He immediately like was fucked, and you can see in the match like Owen Hart has to kind of ad-lib what he's doing in the match because it's like, what do you do now? And improv is a big part of wrestling depending on the circumstances of what's happening. And Stone Cold, one of the toughest motherfuckers, manages to roll up Owen Hart. I mean, it looks really pathetic when you see it, but considering this dude just broke his fucking neck, this was amazing. He rolled him up into a small package, 1, 2, 3, and he actually walked out on his own with some help, but he still walked out on his own. And it was just, it was pretty fucked up. But that was like, that and his knees are the main reasons why Stone Cold ended up having to retire early.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's do some catch up. Oh, Kurt Angle. Whatever happened to Kurt Angle?
Kurt Angle had done really well in WWE, but then he went over to TNA. And not to say that his run in TNA is not good. I actually think he's done pretty fucking well for himself, and especially the caliber of matches that he's had. But TNA is viewed as a fucking joke. It doesn't help that they've mismanaged every single facet of that company. I've been on multiple networks, on multiple time slots, on multiple different days, have lost tons of top tier talent. And Kurt Angle is there, but he did announce just recently that he's retiring from TNA. He had specifically stated he's retiring from TNA, but he didn't say from wrestling. So I think what might be happening is that he's going to end up going to WWE, and he's going to have like one last run there, and then he's going to retire altogether.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because he's going to be a little bit older now, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in his mid-40s. So that's... I mean, the dude's in phenomenal shape. You would think, mid-40s, hanging up, dude. But if you've seen a lot of his matches that he's had within the past couple months, you wouldn't assume that this is somebody that needs to hang it up. But it's always good to go out on top. Yeah. And that's essentially what he's doing. You don't want to stick around and overstay your welcome to the point that you start to diminish your own career because you ended it so badly.
Speaking of which, is the Big Show still there?
Oh God, he is.
Well, that's why I brought him up. Yeah,
fuck,
exactly.
Man.
Even back in the day, whenever I'd hear his music go, hey, I'm like, no, I don't want to see the Big Show.
Dude, one of the best things, it made me happy because I've never been a fan of the Big Show outside of him being, he's actually quite funny.
He's a great guy. I watched a documentary on him. As a human being, he's fantastic. As a wrestler, I just never was into him.
He's so fucking boring. I can't stand watching him in the ring because he's
slow.
It's just boring. Yeah. The one time, The Rock and Big Show were having this exchange back and forth. And the Big Show, he'd come out and he'd raise his hand into the air because, he does like the choke slam and shit. And The Rock is just making fun of him. He's like, well, it's the Big Slow. And he's just like, Arr! And he's like raising his hand like fucking retarded. And it was so fucking funny. And And then the Big Show had just gotten his hair cut. Like he had long hair pulled back into a ponytail. He got his hair cut like really fucking short. He looked like an idiot. And the Rock was like, and your stupid fucking haircut. And it's just like tearing into him. And I was like, damn, the Big Show's asshole's so gaping they could just drive the fucking beer truck that Austin came out on right through that son of a bitch. It was bad. It was, oh man, it was so bad, but it was so fucking funny.
The Rock was a knife on that microphone. He would slice through you, man. I mean, that guy could speak so he never fucked up. He never screwed up. Always on point. Always annihilating. Always hilarious.
There's like I'm subscribed to several wrestling channels, and also I have quite a few wrestling pages that I follow on Facebook and shit. And they were playing highlights of some stuff from wrestling, and like anytime that they interviewed The Rock, there was two people that I wanted to interview The Rock because he always ended up just abusing the shit out of them verbally and sometimes physically. But that was Jonathan Coachman, who now does sports broadcasting, and Michael Cole, who I do not want this motherfucker on commentary anymore. He sucks so many fucking flaccid dicks. But anytime The Rock would come out, he would just start making fun of them. Every single time. Like, he'd go and he'd start cutting his promo, would start ripping on them, start slapping them around and shit, making fools of them, would continue cutting his promo, talking about Know Your Role Boulevard, that they need to shut their mouth, how he's gonna check them into the SmackDown hotel, how they want his fucking strudel. It's just, the whole 9 yards. I'm like, God damn, you're the fucking man. There wasn't a time that The Rock wouldn't come out on an episode of Raw or SmackDown and wouldn't tear the house down with a single fucking promo.
Yeah, great. Like, another guy I really liked, and he was not a wrestler, was Mean Gene. I loved him.
Mean Gene Okerlund, dude.
The best.
One of my favorite Mean Gene moments was actually something that wasn't scheduled to happen. It was like, I forget if it was like Survivor Series or Royal Rumble or some shit, but they had the sign for it hanging behind him while he was conducting an interview, and it fell.
Yeah?
And he's like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that? And oh my god. And like, the wrestlers that he's with are all like maintaining their composure, but you can tell that they want to bust out laughing so much because he got scared shitless on camera, live.
Yeah.
This shit is live in front of, like, an expansive audience of millions around the world and shit tons, like, there in person. I'm like, dude, that stuff was funny as hell.
That's awesome. Did he pass away? I think he probably did.
No, he's still alive and kicking.
Is he?
Yeah, the last time I had seen him, they got this shit on WWE Network called Legends House.
Yeah.
And it's got like a bunch of older wrestlers and shit on there. And it's sad because like Roddy Piper is on there and he passed away recently, which fucking bumps me out. But
a lot of great wrestlers have died, Yeah.
They have. And it's just like, between losing like Macho Man and fucking Piper, I was like, God damn, that just a knife right to the heart. But Mean Gene's actually on that show Legends House, and they got quite a few people on there. But it's I don't know, it's an interesting show. I don't really give a fuck too much about it because it's very very scripted. And it's supposed to be like reality television, but you can tell most of that shit's like phony baloney.
Yeah, they're saying it because they want to, but
now, who would you say, like, okay, from the entire Attitude Era, since I know that you've enjoyed that quite a bit, who would you say is your favorite wrestler in general from that period?
That's an interesting one. It's so stereotypical. It's I'd say from I got two I'd like to say.
Yeah.
One is so obvious. One is like so obvious, and one is a bit more technical insanity stuff that I saw, gymnastics. I mean that I couldn't even comprehend. I mentioned them earlier, the Hardy Boys. I had never seen ladder matches like I saw with them. I'd never seen anything like that.
See, the ladder matches were, I mean, they literally like had set the bar to a new level with
to a level that was impassable.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be setting up, and I'm like, no way, no way. And I'd see him get up and do a fucking flip in the air backwards off this ladder, and I'd be like, and so executed, so perfectly, so professionally. So I was in awe, absolute awe. I really love those guys for that. When the ladders started coming out, when they were there, I'm like, fuck yeah. And they were younger guys at the time, so I could really, at that time, relate to them. I was like 26. I was like, yeah, fucking. But for pure fun and entertainment, The Rock, he was the epitome of pure sports entertainment, like incredibility. I'm creating a brand new word there, incredibility. He was something beyond anything I've ever seen. I mean, it's still, and The Rock is out now, and it's great that he comes in every once in a while. There's a WrestleMania, but it'll never be that golden moment in time. That was the Attitude Era.
I mean, it's definitely hard for them to go and capture, the lightning in a bottle more than once, just because with the passage of time and with how things change, he can't be around doing that stuff like week in and week out to build up all of these characters and stories and blah, blah, blah. And it's interesting that you bring up the Hardy Boys, because they had, not only were their ladder matches amazing, they also redefined the TLC matches, which I think the TLC pay-per-view is actually like the next one that's coming up.
Yeah.
Tables, ladders, and chairs it was the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys.
I wanted to bring the Dudley Boys. I love those guys too.
Dude, they actually just came back recently.
I know. I saw that. Was that in a WrestleMania? Because I saw them coming. I saw the clip online, and it's like, maybe it wasn't a WrestleMania, but I saw a clip online. I'm like, holy shit, they're back, and they look pretty good.
Oh, they were in TNA. Both of them were in TNA for a while, and Bubba Ray was actually their champ for a while, because they both went to singles competition. Yeah. And Bubba Ray's, if you got to follow the Dudleys since ECW, they put on not only some of the best damn tag matches in the entire world, but they were some of the best heels. They were such fucking awesome bad guys, because they would come out, and what you wouldn't see on television, you would have to be there live in the ECW arenas to see this shit, but they would come out and they would say everything. They'd be like, look at this faggot fucking pussy in the front row right here. Probably thinking about gobbling my cock right now, you little fucking bitch. And I mean, legit, saying this stuff to the crowd. And they had said in interviews, they were like, if we don't get people to literally want to spit on us or want to fight us, we haven't done our job as bad guys.
Yeah.
They had that old school mentality of it, that they wanted heat outside of wrestling. And them going into like TNA, I know that they were doing some of that shit there, but in WWE, I think that they started performing better as a tag team wrestling wise, and they were doing such awesome shit. Like some of the stuff that they would set up, they'll have like two ladders set up, a table on top of those.
I know.
And Edge, after a while, like I remember there was one point that. Was it Jeff Hardy's hanging from the top rope, hanging onto the belt, and then Edge jumps from the top of the ladder and spears Jeff Hardy in midair down to the ring. And this is like a 15-foot drop.
I know.
I was like, holy shit. And that's actually like one of the crowd chants I miss so damn much, is when something over the top and like a big spectacle would occur, people would be like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. It was always so fucking cool, but dude, I completely agree. Their matches, bar none, some of the best shit ever.
Yeah. Oh, when they set the table on fire, so they'd even do a difference. But it was just fun. And the Hardy Boys, are they still wrestling, or are they done?
Let's see. I know that Matt Hardy is still around. Last time I checked, Matt Hardy actually had the belt over at TNA, but I don't know, because I don't get to watch TNA all that often. I waver in and out of it because, to be honest, outside their matches, the show's just so fucking uninteresting. But I know Jeff Hardy was still around, but they're still active. I'm just waiting for them to kind of make a comeback into WWE as well, and then do one last run there. Because fuck it, why not? You got the Dudley Boys back, why not?
Yeah, and we were talking. It was funny. We were talking last night. Um, Wrestling's not doing well now, which is
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Yeah, like I think I love the Attitude Era because there was no internet. It was just me and the TV and those characters, and I was, I couldn't go and talk to anybody about this stuff except for the guys in film school. But it was kind of like very intimate. Now there's so much bitching online. Going, no, this should be this way. This should be that way. What's killed wrestling now?
Competition has killed wrestling because
Competition. Yeah.
they WWE in the not later 2000s, in the 2000s had bought WCW because WCW just shit itself.
Yeah.
They couldn't turn a profit worth a damn, so Vince McMahon came in and apparently bought them for pretty cheap.
I bet he did.
And he squandered so many opportunities by obtaining WCW, and it didn't get better after that. Not to say that the entire product turned to shit. It's just that they were at their best because they were being pushed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have taken the risks and the approaches that they did if it wasn't for the competition changing the entire landscape.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening is they had changed the landscape and they bought their competition. They had nobody to compete against. Now they are the product.
They became stagnant in their own. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
complacency.
people can argue, well, there is TNA and there is Ring of Honor and there is CZW and there is New Japan Wrestling and all the other shit. But none of them have the same credibility. None of them have the same amount of viewership.
Yeah.
You would need a nationally syndicated network to go and pick up one of these shows and put it on in prime time and put money behind this shit to give them a run for their money. You need competent performers, competent writers. You need to be a viable threat to them.
And yeah, I guess it must have hurt the wrestlers as well because they can't use any leverage. Well, I'll go to this network then.
Oh yeah,
so they'll be getting less money and less showtime, and nobody cares. Yeah,
it's killed a lot of shit for them, and there's a lot of talent who's talked about it and how it does suck in a lot of ways. I mean, I've heard certain things where they said, well, I'll just go to Japan because wrestling in Japan is very different. Very different.
It's very acrobatic and.
Well, for example, wrestling in Japan, they don't you don't see them screaming at the top of their lungs. There's not crazy setups and stages and pyro and a bunch of signs everywhere. There's they'll sit there and they watch it and they're focused and shit and they're quiet because they're trying to pay attention to all the details of the match, and they feel that that's being more respectable by doing that is by watching and being attentive.
Yeah.
And some people will say that, but right now they're pushing this whole PG thing. There's been people who argue on whether or not does PG really matter with the product overall. And then the people that are in charge, a lot of people have bitched at Vince McMahon, who still does have the final say whether anybody's going to argue or not. There are motherfuckers who still work for the company who have admitted this off air and on their own. Vince McMahon has the final say so, and he's still very much part of the creative team. And it just seems like they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're trying to force people to like things that they don't like. And
yeah, so does Triple H and Stephanie now? Do they have a say? Are they really running it, or is it just a show?
They do. They actually have a lot of say. Back in the late '90s, early 2000s, for example, Stephanie was one of the main writers for SmackDown.
Oh, was she? She wrote. I didn't know that.
A big time part of creative. Triple H, he obviously was one of the main talent, but
Yeah.
then he had married Stephanie McMahon. They had children, but Triple H is probably their best hope for shit working out better because
Yeah.
he understands the business from a completely different perspective.
From a wrestling perspective, from a wrestler perspective, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that they do you know anything about NXT?
NXT. No, I don't.
NXT is kind of one of the best things that they have right now. It's interesting. NXT is owned by WWE, but it's ran completely different. Like, you have to have the WWE network to watch, but I know that there's fucking like you can find videos of it online to see some of the shit.
Well, it's a network within a network, really?
It's
Like a sub show?
yeah, pretty much like imagine a federation owned by WWE that's completely separate, and it has an indie wrestling vibe.
Oh, jeez.
And it's phenomenal. It's really interesting that they seem to take more risks, and this is kind of a better wrestling product. Like the women's division there, absolutely fucking remarkable. I think it's gotten a lot better, like on the main show, but
Yeah.
it depends on who they have on. They should never have the fucking Bellas on, for example. They are fucking terrible. But they're fucking the right people, so that's why they're around.
Mm.
But with NXT, I just feel like that's a bit more like what they should be doing with Raw. Like, Raw's 3 hours, and within 3 hours, they still don't know how to keep your attention.
After, how can this be after so many years? That's what I don't understand. That's so
Well,
sad to hear that.
I think that there's a lot of factors that play into it. You figure that we're now at a big time shift in entertainment, where you figured years ago there wasn't things like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
People are finding lots of ways to get their entertainment, and you have to listen and find out what people want to maintain their interest and keep them coming back week after week. Like, one of the things that was always cool about Raw and SmackDown was they would build up this, like, they would open and end a show in such a way that kept your ass tuning in. They'd end a show on a cliffhanger, and it's like, oh man, I have to see what the fuck happens next. I need to see if this is going to be conclusive or if it's going to be ongoing. They don't have that now. They're pushing talent that isn't over with the fans. Like currently, Sheamus is the fucking champ. Nobody wants Sheamus as the champ. Nothing against the dude. He's fucking remarkable in the ring.
Then why? Okay. Then why is he? Is he there so somebody's getting ready to take him down? Do they build things up that way? Because I don't understand from a wrestling point of view, from a writing wrestling point of view, is have they put Sheamus there as a placeholder that, yes, look at you're going, I hate this guy, but then all of a sudden, deep down, they're going to get a hero to come in, somebody you're rooting for to take his ass down. You're like, yes, took Sheamus down.
That it's kind of cool that you mentioned that, because that is essentially the build-up. Sheamus is admittedly a placeholder champ, because the champ before him was Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins came in with a faction called The Shield, and Seth Rollins ended up having a very nasty injury on his knee during a match. And it got real fucked up. Again, something that's just like really gross to watch. But he ended up getting injured, so he's going to be out for, I think, 5 more months. So, they had to scramble and change things. So they decided on Sheamus. One of the reasons why they went with Sheamus is because Sheamus is over with the people in the back, and they can trust him with it. Like, Sheamus can perform well on the mic, Sheamus can perform well in the ring, but Sheamus can't be the face of the fucking company, and he isn't over with the fans in such a way that it would work. Like, and they're trying to build up Roman Reigns as somebody to be the baby face to take him down. Like, the way that they've built him up is, hey, we're going to have it so that Roman Reigns, who you're supposed to feel bad for and sympathetic for because he got screwed out of the championship, but everybody boos him the entire time. Nobody feels sympathetic, so all of this is for naught. They needed to just have Roman Reigns become a fucking bad guy, and be like, you know what? All of you have booed me the entire time while I've been a great fucking person to all of you. I've signed shit for you. I've high-fived many of you. I've been the best fucking wrestler that I possibly can be, and you've shat on me. You know what? Fuck all of you. That would get him over, because that's exactly what his cousin did, the goddamn Rock. When he was Rocky Maivia and then transitioned into becoming The Rock, he decided to become an asshole, be a bad guy because nobody was liking him. They just listened to the fans, and it worked. And they aren't doing that now.
Yeah, and it was fascinating. You're telling me that they put in fake cheering.
Yep.
Oh, that's so. Yeah, of course they did.
This is something they are infamous and notorious for now. And keep in mind that this is unheard of back in the day, because it was to the point that, like, if you watch old episodes of Raw, people would be screaming and cheering so loud sometimes, it was deafening.
Yeah.
Now they're to the point where, like on television, they'll air a segment, and you'll hear like all the pops from the crowd, cheering and booing and what have you. Then somebody will take their smartphone with them and be recording that same exact segment, play them side by side. It is quiet as a fucking whisper. And then on TV, it's something else because they decide to alter and edit it.
Yeah, that's of course, right? Of course. And so we're seeing a change that way. Another thing that bothered me that you told me about, when we were talking last night, there was a lot of stuff. It's so funny. We were talking last night. We're like, we should have made this into a podcast.
Yeah, that's actually where we got this idea from. And we were like, fuck. Well, we're both wrestling fans. Let's talk about wrestling.
Yeah, is that now they won't... Hey, you know what? The one thing I can understand, if somebody breaks their neck from doing a wrestling move that's performed incorrectly, I think they should maybe remove that wrestler for a short amount of time, and also maybe remove the move. We talked about this last night.
Yeah.
But now they're saying, oh, no, we think that move's too dangerous. You don't do it. Don't do that move. Don't. So they're bringing the PC to wrestling, and it's just like,
yep.
I hate how everybody's deciding what happens. Like, it's happening with video games. It's happening with movies. It's happening everywhere. Anybody say, "Oh no, that's unsafe. They shouldn't do that. Or it should be a woman doing this. It should be a guy doing this." They're changing everything to please nobody. I mean, it just is pissing me off.
It's kind of ridiculous to think that there is this large repertoire of moves that are completely not usable anymore. There's words that they aren't allowed to say on microphone.
Like what?
There's literally a list. God, some
Probably
of them
they're all like PC, kind of things. Like
they're really stupid things. I know that, for example, the commentary team cannot say wrestler or performer. They have to call them superstars.
Shut up.
And it's one of the dumbest fucking things in the entire world, because
it's wrestling.
Yeah, like what was it? They can't say belt. Like, they can't say they're winning the belt or whatever. They have to say the championship or some shit like that. There's like this really weird list of things that they want to go and control that's being said, and I'm like, man, this is fucking dumb. Actually, I want to switch gears here because I feel like it's just so overly negative.
No, but it's interesting. That's where wrestling. I've been out of wrestling. It's like fascinating for me to hear modern.
Oh no, it definitely is. It just, the things that are taken away from you, and like the creative box that they put the performers and the commentators and everybody inside of, so that they cannot be as imaginative and just do their thing. That ends up meaning that it's kind of like, hey, do you want this drink, or do you want the caffeine-free diet version of this drink?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't want less. I want more. But like that spell of time that I was talking about, where I didn't get into that, like I left wrestling in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's right.
The person that ended up getting me interested again, like reinvigorating my love for wrestling and passion for it, was actually CM Punk.
Ah.
Now, do you know much about him?
I just know about the controversy of when he left. I knew he was extremely popular. Like you have to say, I was not watching wrestling at this point, so I was catching highlights and stuff like that. So he was doing extremely well.
Oh yeah, CM Punk was pretty much like the top of the company, and he rose through the ranks quick as fuck. Paul
Wow.
Heyman, who works for WWE and used to be the owner of ECW, there's a certain faction of people that are Paul Heyman guys, where
Yeah.
Paul Heyman kind of found them and gave them his blessing.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar is a Paul Heyman guy. Undertaker is a Paul Heyman guy. Stone Cold is actually a Paul Heyman guy.
Oh wow, geez, from that.
Let's see. CM Punk is a Paul Heyman guy, and that's because like they didn't want to push CM Punk because they were like, he doesn't have the look and he doesn't have this and that. And Paul Heyman's like, you really need to like get the fuck off your high horse and realize that this dude is the shit if you give him the opportunity. And every time like CM Punk would go out to the ring and pick up the microphone, it was a triple A caliber promo
Yeah.
done with such fucking excellence. A lot of people would call them pipe bomb promos because of his infamous pipe bomb promo that he had done on an episode of Raw. And it was just so fucking cool to see this dude. I liked whenever he had this thing called the Straight Edge Society. Because he had this complete god complex going on and was telling everybody how fucking depraved, disgusting, and pathetic and shitty they are for, giving into the temptations of life that they do. Meanwhile, he doesn't, and he's better than them for it. And he would go out there and he would perform at such a caliber that nobody could even really argue with him other than they just thought he was a dickhead. Like, you can go and drink your beers, you can smoke your cigarettes, you can fucking do your drugs, you can go and give in to all that shit. I don't, and I'm better than you. And he started, like, recruiting people, and it was always so good because people fucking hated him. And I was like, yes, that's my shit right there. I love that stuff.
Did he ever wrestle The Rock?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that was a really big deal. The Rock.
I know. Well, yeah, because the two biggest guys. Like, what happened with that one?
Well, it was the Rock had come back in because Rock's being a movie star, and he came in. So they had this big feud between CM Punk and the Rock, and there was this. It was weird because this is one of those things where it was a blurring of the lines of reality kind of coming into the fray and rearing its head.
Yeah.
And what had happened was CM Punk in real life hated the fact that there was these part-time wrestlers coming in, doing their thing, going over all the full-time wrestlers who have to go and carry the company on their back.
All the time for the rest of the year, yeah.
And you got to see some of this stuff, like some of this like kind of honest to goodness animosity play out in a storyline that they were using. They were like, fuck it, we'll just roll with some of this shit. And they put on an excellent match for WrestleMania. It was very good stuff. Like the entire thing was just, it was executed real well. Like when The Rock went against John Cena, when Rock went against CM Punk, both times were really good, but it was also like the beginning of the end for CM Punk because they kept on just doing shitty things to the talent, and he got fed up and left.
So yeah, we talked about that he had left. He just walked the fuck out of there. Where is he now? What is he doing now?
Currently, he's doing two things right now. He's lucky enough to be married to AJ Lee, that lucky motherfucker.
Who the fuck is that? Who's that?
AJ Lee is. She was actually a big time women's wrestler in WWE and is like smoking fucking hot. Really good on the microphone. Really good in the ring. Is also like a gamer and a comic book fan.
I just looked her up right now. Yeah, she's got that gamer look to her. I can say.
Oh yeah, she's fuck, man. All I can say is lucky. But CM Punk, I would buy that man a fucking beer just for the sheer fact I know he's straight edge. Fuck off. Just for the sheer fact that he has banged all the chicks in wrestling that I've wanted to bang. And I'm just like, dude, my hat's off to you.
What, he banged China? What?
No, China would bang him, technically. Her fucking
Yeah.
clit's big enough to be a dick.
Dude, I always used to
Everybody
love
should
this.
ask X-Pac why he fucking walks funny.
I always used to love the sign where back in the old those days when some little kid would be holding a sign and it said, "I'd rather be in China."
Oh, dude, yeah. Oh my god. It's funny because there was also I mean, wrestling shirts were a big fucking deal. Back around that time, it was hard to find people who weren't wearing shirts that said "Suck It" in Austin 316 and all this other shit. You know, it's so fucking crazy that what is it? Seeing shirts with like Foley is God on it for like
Yeah.
Mankind /
I love you
Cactus
never
Jack.
talked about him as well. He was great as well. But
Dude, that motherfucker is nuts, man. I was actually there live for that time that he got thrown off the Hell in a Cell by the Undertaker.
what? Say what?
The Hell in a Cell,
You were there?
Undertaker and Mankind were at the top of it. This is like the mid '90s.
No. I know that match. You saw it on TV?
No, I was there live. It was
No, you
here in
weren't.
Pittsburgh.
No way.
Yep,
I'm
mean,
I'm a little starstruck of this.
dude.
That is
it
one of
was-
the best matches in history.
Okay. Here, I have to fucking tell this because
Oh my god!
it's one of those things that I've seen a lot of wrestling shows live, like a fucking ton. And this one, I was supposed to see, like with my mom. She didn't get to make it, unfortunately, with me to go see that show, which really bumps me out. She's a big fan of The Undertaker. But so watching this, and they're scrapping and going at it. I'm talking, this is a brutal fucking match. Fucking brutal. I mean, very bloody. And it's mainly just McFoley that's bloody. But they go up to the top of the Hell in a Cell. And this is scary. To watch it is actually scary because you don't want anybody to truly get hurt.
Yeah.
And they're up there, and we're all watching it. And Undertaker just grabs fucking McFoley and throws him right off the top. This is over 20 feet in the air to concrete.
Yeah.
He was supposed to go through the table. McFoley is like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
He obliterates this table as if it was made of mere styrofoam.
Yeah.
And if you see it, because the camera angle for it is down in the corner, right? Like, he's coming at the camera. And if you watch it, he shatters this fucking table as if it wasn't there. It did not break his fall.
I can't believe you were there.
Dude, everybody, no fucking joke, everybody in the audience, you heard so many people gasp in fucking shock.
Oh.
And, like, when he wasn't moving, no fucking joke, man. I swear to fucking God, we all thought he was dead.
Oh, I've seen that match more times than I care to even talk about. I mean, that is a legendary Mick Foley like bite. I mean, that was when he knocked the teeth out of his nose.
Yeah, his own tooth was in his nostril.
I mean, that was the craziest shit I've ever seen.
Dude, you know what's fucked up is the match was technically supposed to end sooner than it did. McFoley got up and wanted to keep going. The dude was like fucking insane.
I know, and then all the tacks that were around.
Thumbtacks in the middle of the ring, he got fucking put onto those, but there was one thing that was an actual fuck up.
What's that?
When they went up to the top of the Hell in a Cell, they
were supposed to walk on there, right?
Well, remember when the Undertaker chokeslammed him on top?
Yes.
And he went through it?
Yeah, he wasn't supposed to go through it.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
I know.
That the fucking if you look on the Hell in a Cell, there's a lot of they've got all these brackets that hold it together to make sure, because I mean, we're talking between the Undertaker and McFoley, we're talking about 600 pounds.
Oh yeah.
So, and the Undertaker picks him up, and that means that during a choke slam, the wrestler will go and pick him up, but the person that's getting picked up pushes off with their legs to give them the leverage and the actual like vertical leap that they need to make it into a convincing chokeslam, because picking up a human being with one hand is really fucking tough, even if you're big and strong.
Yeah.
And you figure that had to have like forced the structure away from them. And then when he came in through it, if you see inside the ring when he lands, look at his upper and lower torso.
I've
It like
watched
contorts in this way. It's so
many
gross.
times. It's horrible. It's unbelievable. He turns into like a rubber man. The way his body just accepts the fucking impact.
Oh, dude, he looks like Mr. Fantastic in a fucking game glitching. Like it's so fucking foul. I'm like, oh my god, and it just
yeah.
like,
That was his greatest match ever. That was the best thing he ever did.
It was definitely one of the most insane match. I mean, like I argue between that and there was one. I don't know if you got to see it. Did you see the I Quit match between Mick Foley and The Rock? Mick Foley's like getting leveled in the face with a chair a lot.
You know, wait, was that in there like a documentary where they showed his kids reacting to him getting hit by The Rock?
I'm pretty sure it was, because that should have been like, I want to say it was King of the Ring, but it was.
Yeah, I think it was in like Wrestling with Shadows where they're saying, where The Rock comes out and he's like, say, hey, how you doing to Nick Foley's family, and it's all really good. And then after he's just kicking the crap out of him in the ring. And I remember Nick Foley's wife was like holding the kid's eyes so they can't see it. So maybe, and he was getting hit all the time with the chair. So yeah.
Oh, he was getting, lit the fuck up. There was actually, it was said that Mick Foley actually went off on The Rock because there was a couple times that when he got hit with the chair, the outer rim of it is much more solid.
Yeah.
And there's no give to it, and he definitely got hit with that. And that's like, that's going to be concussive no matter how the fuck you look at it.
Yeah.
But it's seeing that, man, he became a battered, bloody man. Like, he was wearing a crimson mask of blood.
Yeah.
It was
he
fucking
got
scary.
taken out. He was getting stitches and shit afterwards. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And like, between that, fuck. And there's so many cool match types, like I Quit matches, Buried Alive matches, Hell in a Cell matches, like the tables, ladders, and chairs matches. Like, gimmicks and themes I dig when it comes to wrestling. That stuff's just always fucking cool as hell.
Yeah, I'd like to... Okay, do you think it's worth getting back into wrestling?
Right now, I'll say this. No matter what era of wrestling, even like, we obviously, you and me, we favored the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Even during the Attitude Era, there was shit that was like unwatchable and terrible.
Of course. Yeah.
Every single era of wrestling has it. Is this era that great? By comparison to what I've seen, I feel like I've been spoiled, so no. But that's not to say that there isn't good shit. There are some of the best matches that I've ever seen being put on. There are certain guys right now, like the Wyatt family, I think, is one of the best things that they ever came up with. Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, Eric Rowan, and I always forget the one dude's name because he just got added. They're the shit. All the guys in the Shield, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, they're really good. I know I rip on Roman Reigns' fucking mic skills because they're atrocious, but if they packaged this dude correctly, made him the strong silent type, made him a fucking bad guy that just mowed over people like Goldberg style, he'd be fucking perfect.
Who's your favorite wrestler now? I know it's Austin, CM Punk, but who is it now?
Oh man, it's hard to say. I would say, like, I gravitate towards bad guys a lot. I do, because I think they're more interesting. I would say Seth Rollins is, and it sucks because he's out of commission right now. And, Cesaro's another guy I'm bummed out because there is one of the best matches I've seen ever within recent memory was actually on NXT. Trust me, everybody, including you, Johnny, you need to fucking see this shit.
Yeah?
There's a match between a dude named Sami Zayn and Cesaro. And the match that they put on not only is a match of the year caliber type of match, but is one of those like match of the decade ones. Their chemistry in ring was so fucking good. I was like, God damn, this is great. But I'd say overall right now, it's definitely Seth Rollins. With him out, I don't even know who. Like I'll actually say this. God, who the fuck is it? I'm totally drawing a fucking blank right now. When it comes to a couple things. Oh my god, why the fuck can't I think of their name?
It's a Big Show. Just admit it.
Well, yeah, clearly, it definitely has to be the Big Show. No, the Big Show, the Big Show is one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my entire life. As a matter of fact, he's still wrestling somehow, and I don't know how because he's so fucking slow and so fucking boring. I'm just like terrible. But my brain just fucking clicked back in. New Day. New Day was horrible to start because nobody knew what they were doing. Now they're going out there and not giving a shit. They are the highlight of every episode of Raw and have been since they've been putting them out there.
Their name is New Day?
New Day. It's three guys. It's Kofi Kingston, Biggie Langston, and God, why the fuck can't I remember his name? As a matter of fact, he's on Up Up Down Down. Really good YouTube show.
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm drawing so many blanks, I do apologize. But New Day, basically just a faction of three dudes that were supposed to be all about positivity and shit, and don't be sour. You gotta see them go out there and do their shit. They're just ridiculous. I mean, it's fucking hilarious. Like, it really is. There was one point, I want to pull it up. I have to show this to you after the whole thing, but Xavier Woods, that's his name. Xavier Woods has been coming out with a trumpet, and he was doing the Final Fantasy victory theme.
What?
I'm dead serious. He's got a Legend of Zelda tattoo on his arm. He's got his own YouTube Let's Play series. This dude has done Dragon Ball Z reference jokes, video game references, in ring. They literally have been going out there and just being hilarious. Everything they've been doing is fucking funny, and they've been getting guys over. Like, nobody's giving a shit one way or the other about our new champ, but guess the fuck what? The minute that you teamed him up with the New Day, shit has been perfect. Like, it is so goddamn funny. Yeah, I love them. So I'd say Seth Rollins and New Day. As a matter of fact, he was teamed up with New Day a couple times because they're kind of like trolls. Imagine people that don't give a fuck and just want to piss you off, and they're hilarious. I love it.
That's wicked, man. I know. Cool, okay, yeah. I'd like to get back into wrestling. I used to really, really enjoy it a lot. I mean, I used to look forward to it. I became like those two guys in school looking forward to it every week, you know? It was the best fucking shit on television.
I mean, one of the best things that you can do, man, and I mean, like, I hate cable television because there's nothing interesting.
Me too. I don't watch cable. I don't have cable anymore.
Dude, I just, like, if you don't have cable, there's always people that'll have streams of it online that you can go and watch.
Is there?
Yeah, you have to find them at random. It's really fucking, like, hit or miss. But that's how I was finding them. But then I started, I have a DVR to go and tape them specifically. And then X-Files next month.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna lose my shit over that. But you know, that I DVR it so I can fast forward through all the cookie cutter bullshit that I don't want to sit through because it's fucking lame.
Yeah.
You know, like John Cena cutting a fucking promo that's him saying, "Oh, never back down and never give up."
John Cena. I should just love John Cena just to drive you nuts.
You know what? I do like John Cena. When he's a bad guy. He's probably one of the best bad guys I had seen. Whenever he was coming out doing the Dr. Thugonomics shit, it was fucking great. But him as a good guy, it's so fucking bland. His matches, there's people like the 5 Moves of Doom thing making fun of the fact that he doesn't exactly have like the most versatile moveset. But this dude has put on some AAA caliber matches whenever it's needed, and he always manages to. So even though people dislike him, you got to give him his dues whenever they're due, and he does then. And thank fucking God he's on break right now.
Oh, is he on a break too?
Yeah, he's recording like a movie right now. Or
I think you're gonna say like a Christmas album. I'm like, what?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of funny because The Miz. A lot of people are like, I fucking hate The Miz. The Miz is in some like holiday lovey-dovey movie. It's like an ABC comedy movie. I'm like, Jesus, fuck my eye, Christ. How much worse can you get? Like, god damn. Might as well just bury yourself with the golden shovel.
Because I know it's coming up to Christmas in a couple of weeks, but man, everybody's been telling me, "Oh, Johnny, you got to watch the Bill Murray Christmas special. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original." I started watching it the other day. I got 20 minutes in, and I'm like, "This is fucking terrible." And I love Bill Murray, but I'm like, "What is everybody smoking?"
Yeah, I haven't actually seen it myself. I'm going to stick with my traditional list of Christmas movies, which I think that we should definitely talk about in the next episode.
Let's save it for our next episode, which will be a Christmas episode.
Fuck yeah! And I'll say this, man. If you do get the chance, like watch old episodes of Nitro, ECW, and Raw on WWE Network. Watch them on YouTube. Watch them wherever the fuck that you can. Watch the old pay-per-views, and just for anybody who's listening to this and might have been not ever really sold on wrestling, check that shit out, because that'll give you an inkling and an understanding of, oh, hey, this is actually kind of good. Because that's how we got into wrestling. You know, you get to see all that classic shit and understand why it's so fucking cool, and then understand why people are pretty disappointed with things right now. So hopefully it gets better sooner than later.
Yeah, you know, wrestling is like anything. It has its highs, its lows, all that kinds of stuff. So, good. I think, we covered a lot of stuff. I think we covered everything we wanted to cover, really. So.
Oh, dude, I feel bad because I talked so much in this episode.
Hey, no. Let me say this to you and to the audience, is that I really wanted this episode to be this way. And the reason why I did, because, you know, I got my small experience when I was a kid, my bigger experience when I was in my mid-20s, and I've been out of wrestling for so long. So for me, it's cool to hear from somebody I trust on what's been going on in wrestling now, what the state of wrestling is. I wanted to know. So by the way, I enjoyed hearing it all. But anyways, guys, I just want to say until next time.
Game the fuck on.